Hello? Is anyone there? Hi! Hello you sexy beasts and welcome back to my humble domain, which is just so conveniently cropped so you can't see the massive pile of dirty clothes that's hanging in the corner over there. In the last video I told you not to buy the AMX SS11, the premium, well pretty much the highest tier premium French tank they can buy. If you don't know, the patch should be just around the corner, should be releasing this week. And if you want yourself access to the French tanks, you will either have to grind to unlock the access for them, which will take about 2 weeks, or you can simply buy your way into the CBT by buying one of the premium packs. So as a kind of a PSA, I'm going to warn you, don't buy the AMX SS11. In fact, over the next couple of videos I'm going to go through all 3 premium tanks just to give you an idea of what you can expect from each tank. Now, keep in mind, this is dev server footage you're about to see. These are dev server stats. Things are subject to change. And in fact, they have changed between the 2 dev server openings. For the AMX S11, they have changed for the worse. In any case, let's look at the stats. Take a good hard look at this frame, because you're going to see this tank quite a bit. The AMX-13 chassis is the most represented in the French tech tree at the moment, with a total of 5 tanks, I believe, 5 different AMX-13s. Or at least if not just the AMX-13, at least the turret and the gun. The AMX-13 S11 is a rank 4 battle rating 6.7 tank, excuse me for that, with a 75mm SA50 L57 cannon. This cannon in particular, in fact the cannon and the turret, is featured on everything from battle rating 4.7 in the premium M4A1 to 9.0 in the AMX-13 with the hot rockets. Missiles, I should say. Now, being a light tank, you don't have much in terms of armor. There's a 3.3 version of the AMX-13, which I guess the armor could work there. But the cannon is different and is not auto-loading. This one is in fact auto-loading. It has a fire rate of about 12 shots per minute, which is about a reload of 5 seconds in between shots. Do keep in mind though, auto-loading means that this thing has a limited magazine size. In this case, 12 rounds. After you expend those 12 rounds, you will have to go for a lengthy 45-second reload to replenish your magazine. This also means you can't exactly switch your ammo types midway through without having to go for the whole long reload. You generally just want to take one ammo type in these kinds of auto-loading tanks. Now, the tank only has 3 crew, which doesn't spell great things for the survivability of the tank. It also has ammo pretty much spewing everywhere. If they don't hit your ATGMs, they are going to hit your ammo, if you even survived the first shot in the first place. The ammo choices are, well, how do I put this? The cannon is interesting. At 4.7 on the M4A1, this cannon is pretty damn good. You only get access to the first shell, but it has way enough penetration to deal with everything. The upgraded shell that's featured only on this one, the AMX-13 at 6.0 and the 9.0 AMX-13, is, well, how do I put it? It used to have actually more penetration on the first dev server with 197, but then they buffed the damage of AP but reduced the penetration of that AP shell, and not only does 180mm of penetration. At 6.7, you can kind of see the problem here. It also has a couple of new modifications there. This is considered a scout tank, which will benefit of the new scouting mechanics that are coming in patch 1.75. I am thinking of doing a dedicated video on that when the patch launches, because I have to get a little more experience in it. But you're going to see in the gameplay how it works more or less. Now, what this tank essentially is, and why I don't suggest you to buy is because this tank is exactly the same as the AMX-13 that's for free at battle rating 6.0. The only thing this thing has different is the ATGMs, which by the way, those are 4 ATGMs that are the same as the ATGM on the STRV81 British Premium. They are hand-aimed, you have to aim them with your keyboard, unless you're playing in arcade mode, in which case you can aim everything with mouse aim. But they bump up your battle rating by 0.7. Not only just by 0.7, but they put you right into 6.7, which is right in the 6.7, 7.7 black hole. What I'm trying to say is you're going to get up-tiered a lot in this tank. And it's those 7.7 up-tiers that I believe will spell the doom of this tank. Now keep in mind, when you buy a premium tank, you want something that is efficient at grinding. Something that's efficient at grinding must be something that's efficient at killing stuff. The MX-13 SS11 only has 180mm of penetration on the best shell. That is already barely enough at its own battle rating. You can't deal with King Tigers frontally, you can't really deal with T-34s or T-29s frontally. You can maybe deal with some medium tanks and some tanks from the side. Keep also in mind that the shell is pure AP, you don't have any explosive filler on it. Although, to be fair, it is not quite as bad as it currently is on 1.73. AP of this caliber is getting buffed and causes more spalling damage. But the problem is, spalling damage kind of works best when you fire along the longitude of a tank, not at the side, if that makes any sense. And since you are forced to shoot at the sides of tanks with this thing, you aren't really going to get many one-shot kills, which is an issue in a tank that doesn't really have armor or crew or any survivability at all. Now the mobility it's not bad. Let's be fair, it is a light tank. It is a pretty light tank. It doesn't have the best horsepower figure, but for the weight this thing has, it's not exactly the worst thing out there. Although I did find that it is not quite good enough. Of course, being a premium tank, it already comes completely upgraded, so stock, when you buy the AMX-13 that's in the tech trees, you're going to have a different experience. But it's not IU-251 levels fast, if that makes any sense. Also, look at that, when I fire. Pay close attention to my gun sight and the way the gun just wobbles. Do you see that? That is one of the major drawbacks. That's one of many major drawbacks of the AMX-13. The suspension and the turrets wobble around like crazy. The tank is not stabilized. In fact, I don't think any of the French tanks are really stabilized, except for some of the early ones, which are the semi-shoulder mounted stabilization, not proper stabilization. Now that is a problem in a tank like this. Keep in mind, you don't have armor. You only have free crew. Anyone spots you, anyone shoots at you, you are dead. So this tank relies on shoot and scoot tactics. You have to get in, take your shot and get out. The problem is getting in. And getting out, in fact, but we're going to talk about it a little bit later. This tank can't exactly react quickly to threats whilst it's on the move. Unless you try and fire on the move, which is extremely inaccurate, and given that you have low penetration, it doesn't really work most of the time. You'll have to stop, wait at least 2 to 3 seconds for your gun to settle, which is more than enough time for the enemy, especially enemies which have stabilized guns, to completely destroy you, and then you have to reverse. That is the reverse speed of a light French tank. 6 km per hour going downhill. On flat terrain it's about 5 km per hour. The reverse speed of the AMX-13 is quite bad, and it's another major drawback. This is a tank that requires shoot and scoot tactics due to this lack of armor, but doesn't have shoot and scoot characteristics. Look at the way the gun wobbles. Look at how much the gun wobbles when you fire your shot. Yes, okay, great. The output means that you can fire a shot every 5 seconds. How useful is that when you can't really penetrate the enemy from the front? How useful is that when you have to wait a solid 2 seconds between spotting the enemy, stopping, and being able to fire? This tank relies a lot on not being seen at all, essentially. Even at the look at the side of the T-44 over there. We have troubles penetrating that guy. T-54s, forget it. Later on in the gameplay we're going up against IS-3s and T-54s, I believe. Even Panthers at longer ranges. You're going to have problems penetrating stuff with these shells. Now, I did not talk about the AT gems yet. Yes, the AT gems are there, I suppose. Same AT gems as on the STRV-81, they have 600mm of penetration, which is more than enough to deal with pretty much anything you're ever going to face. Not quite T-64s, but then again at 6.7 you're not going to face T-64, so that's a redundant comparison to make. The problem is it really worth it? Keep in mind, you're paying 0.7 battle rating for these AT gems, of which you get 4. But they are kind of slow, they only have 120 meter per second velocity. And they are hand-aimed, which is also another problem, which counterplaces scoot and shoot tactics, or shoot and scoot tactics. Whilst those ATGMs are in the air and you are controlling them with your keyboard, you cannot move your tank. So you are exposed. The ATGMs also can be used at closer ranges. As you can see, they have a slight angle upwards. So you can't use them at shotgun range to shoot at enemies. They have to be at somewhat medium range. Which means that yes, at longer ranges you can use the ATGMs to deal with King Tigers, which you can't do with your gun. At the same time, if you find a King Tiger at closer ranges, and he doesn't let you flank, you are kind of screwed. You can't frontally deal with King Tigers, let alone T-34s, T-29s, IS-6s, T-54s, IS-3s, IS-4s, that's all tanks you're going to face. Heck, at 7.7, you're going to be facing M103s. Good luck against that. Oh, another problem. Oscillating turrets don't have much in terms of gun depression and gun elevation, especially the elevation is quite bad. As you have the whole overhang on the back of the turret where the magazine and the shells for the autoloader are housed, you can't elevate your gun all that much, which means that if you are in hilly terrain like this, on El Alamein, yeah, you saw, we couldn't get our gun on target. That's another issue. Versatility in being able to engage the target. It's already hard enough being able to find a target that you can penetrate in the first place. It makes it even harder when you find a target that's at a high elevation in you and you can't get your gun on bearing. Also, this Panther 2, yeah, we're pretty much just bouncing a lot of shots. We aren't exactly on perfectly straight terrain, so I had to take a couple shots there to get my point in. By the way, we just scouted our target. You can see on the bottom we have an icon for a binocular. I just finished this guy off with the ATGM since my clip ran out. Now I have to go through the 45-second reload. We scouted that tank, and that tank as well. The scouting mechanic is essentially available to a couple of tanks, not all of them, not all of the light tanks, in that matter of fact. It's only available to a couple of tanks. It is something that you have to set in the controls, but you don't really have to research anything for. And what it does is update the position of the enemy periodically for your entire team to see. You can see that red arrow that's over that Panther 2 over there that I spotted earlier. It indicates a general direction, general area where that Panther 2 is, for the entirety of your team. Which is quite useful. It also gives you a small silver line and research pod bonus whenever you spot a new tank. You can use this whilst in binocular mode. You don't even have to crest the hill completely. You can simply hide behind cover, use the binoculars and spot tanks that way. It's a new mechanic that should promote team play somewhat. There's also a couple of other rewards. In realistic mode specifically, if you have the airstrike module unlocked, you gain reduced spawn point costs or just completely removed spawn point costs on your aircrafts if the tank you just spotted gets destroyed by a teammate. So it does definitely encourage you not to be the one taking the shots, which you can't really do with the AMX in either case. But as you can see, the gun, that's a T-54. Usually, with guns at this battle rating, you should be able to go at least for the turret front. Not even saying about the hull, you can't penetrate the hull. Not even trying to say that, but at least the turret front, right? Or at least the lower plate, but 180mm of penetration simply does not cut it. This is a gun that's good at 4.7, where it's featured on tanks like the M4A1, which by the way has the same turret even. Same autoloader, same gun, same turret, only a different chassis. Which arguably might be even a benefit when compared to the MX-13. I simply have to go for the sides. It's... The MX-13 S11 is just a tank with too many drawbacks for what it provides. Usually when I take a look at tanks, I think about the drawbacks versus the benefits, right? What's the drawbacks, what's the benefits, what's the pros and cons? Do the pros outweigh the cons? And with the MX-13 I have to say, no, they don't. What are the pros? Okay, great, you have ATGMs, you have lots of penetration, you can pretty much penetrate anything with them. Awesome. You have an autoloader which delivers a 5-second reload rate, that's pretty fast, that's great. AP has been buffed, they do much more spalling damage now, that's also great. The tank is decently mobile, it's not the fastest tank around, but it can move around. Also, awesome. One more of the major benefits actually for the oscillating turrets in general for the French Tanks is the turret traverse rate. 30 degrees per second complete upgrade with a fully upgraded crew. Awesome! It's a very fast, very quickly traversing turret. So how about the drawbacks? Well, you don't really have armor. You only have 3 crew, so you barely have any survivability. The mobility is decent, but it's not quite RE251 levels of fast. Your gun doesn't have enough penetration, which makes the whole reload kind of pointless. You get 4 ATGMs, but they are mouse aimed, and as such you are very vulnerable whilst you are firing them. And you only get 4 of them. After you expend all 4 of your ATGMs, you essentially revert to a 6.0 AMX13, except that you are 6.7. It being 6.7, of course, you're going to get sucked up into the 7.7 black hole. The reverse rate is completely horrible, especially for a light tank that can't really expose itself. Oh, did I mention the recoil and the wobble? How much time it takes for the gun to settle when you try to stop. You can't really quickly react to enemies, even though you have a great turret traverse rate. The gun isn't stabilized, so it doesn't really matter all that much, because you're going to spend a couple of seconds settling the gun anyways. You can kind of see the issues here. This is not really a competitive tank in a 1 versus 1 sense. Now don't get me wrong, you can make this tank work, definitely. You can simply hide in a corner somewhere, use mobility to go around the outskirts, hide without being seen. The tank is pretty small and it's a pretty small profile, so it's going to be hard for the enemy to see you. But in terms of killing potential, this tank isn't going to bring you the most kills. And as such, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of being premium. It isn't really an effective grinder, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, honestly, there's just too much problems with it. You're better off buying either the M4A1 or the Char B1 Tail, which, by the way, looks very, very interesting. It has 70mm of armor pretty much all around at battle rating 2.3. It's kind of like a mini KV1 in that regard, it's kind of awesome. In any case, hopefully I have stopped some of you spending way too much money in a tank that you don't really want. And I'm actually going to ask you a favor in return. How do you like this whole new format with the camera? I did say a couple of weeks ago that I bought a new camera and I wanted to try it out, and finally I'm doing it on videos now. I might have spent the last couple of weeks just taking photos instead of doing anything related to YouTube. Yeah. But this is going to be it for today. Thank you lads very much for watching. My name is MikeGoesBoom, and I'll see you in the next one.
You can lift your head up to the sky, take a deeper breath and give it time. You can walk the path among the lines with your shattered frame of mind. Or instead you could always stay. We can wait right here